Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's My Games Recruitment Show, where, as you can see, we're talking about something that I feel like people have a lot of misconceptions around, which is unlocking the power of real networking and make it easier and quicker to build your empire. Now, of course, to talk about this today, I'm joined by the one, the only, the magnificent Michael Ames. Hi, Mike, how you doing?
Hello and welcome to the show. Yes, I'm really excited about this because, that networking has been around for years, right? There's actually ancient Greek word for it. It's something like apoploxy or something, some weird
Sounds
word.
great.
Yeah, I know. Progeny, I think. Anyway, whatever. But they had it then. They knew about networking. They understood about networking. And I think it's slipped into a dark place.
Okay, so Mike, we did put it in the post, but let's make sure everybody is singing from the same hymn sheet. We're all talking about the same thing. Can you give us what your definition of networking versus a network is?
Okay, so the real network is, well, the actual definition is a group of people who are willing and able to help you in your personal and professional lives. That's what a real network is. And the best way to think of it is just a bunch of relationships with people who can mutually help each other and want to. They want to do that. Let me tell you what it's based on, and you'll hate this, and you'll probably tell me off, Kirsty, later, but why did you use that model? But I'll do it anyway. I don't care. Right. So years ago, there used to be a thing called the Old Boys Network. Okay. And they all went to the same prep school. Then they went to the same public school. Then they went to the same universities, 2 or 3 universities. Then they all went out into the real world and they went into industry and politics and the army and religion and commerce and the city and blah, wherever they went, right? But the bonds that they built with each other, the relationships that they built with each other throughout those years meant that they helped each other through the Old Boys Network. And what it does is kind of shortcuts things, makes things happen quicker. If you want something done, just ring up so-and-so and he gets it done. If you've got a problem, you know who to speak to. People introduce you to other people when there's opportunities. It's basically a club, really, of people who are there to help each other, and they want to and they can. Now, I don't actually approve of the Old Boys Network because I went to a secondary modern school, which wasn't even a comprehensive. Yeah, I know. So we looked up to people at comprehensives actually back in the day. I know, but what you're trying to create is that, and I think we've lost sight of that. We've turned a network, the word network, from a noun, which is what it really is. That's where its real power lies, into a verb. And that would be okay. Networking would be okay. But what we've done is watered it still further to say that networking is going to events and talking to people. We've got a special name for that. Can you remember what it is, Kirsty? She can't. Look, I put her on the spot. I think it's hilarious. Lucky dipping.
Right. Oh, lucky dipping, yeah. Just going and trying. Just more often than not, though, when you go to those events, it's either you're being sold to or you're selling to someone, normally who is never, ever going to buy from you, ever. Well, because they don't have the power or they have no inclination.
Well, okay, let me just put a perspective on this, because I know there's a number of people that go to these networking events that are organised, breakfast meetings, after work meetings, whatever, and they do okay out of it, and that's fine. If the people that you want go to those events, then go, do what you do if it's successful for you. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. I often get criticised for this. No. What I'm saying is that if you don't like those events, and I don't at all, or if you find that the people you want aren't at those events, no biggie. I've got a massive network. You can imagine, because I'm old and I'm very generous. So, but I don't go to those events. It's not for me. But if you do and you like it, carry on. It's not a criticism. I'm not doing that at all. I'm simply saying that it really isn't networking. It's kind of networking level 1. We've got another 9 levels to go before we get to where we need to be. So yeah, go if you want to, but if you don't want to, don't go. It doesn't matter.
Okay. So we, in a second, are going to look at some rules that we have for this. Pardon? What was that, Mike?
You've frozen for a minute there, but you're okay.
Oh,
You're
but
okay.
in my world, you've frozen. I just started talking over you. But before then, Mike, let's look a little bit deeper about what we just spoke about. So tell me, with a network, who goes in that? Who am I supposed to have? Because I think a lot of people build a network by mistake or unintentionally, but you think you should be quite intentional with it. Who should I have
Okay.
in my network?
Okay, so different types of people. There's 5 different types of people. So the first one is obvious. Clients and prospects, obviously. We want them to feel that they can help us and that they're able to help us, right? Obviously we do. And that, to a lot of people, is the purpose of networking. It's to get those people that they can make money out of, and then when they are clients, to keep that relationship going, so you continue to make money out of them. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, because it's a fair exchange. You're exchanging whatever it is that you do, and they pay you for that. That's absolutely fine. But we really don't look at that as a network per se. That falls into client care, or it falls into business development. It's those 2 areas where you've got a pipeline for business development that you're developing, or you've got a client estate that you're looking after, right? But you could class them, if you want to, as part of the network group. That's fine. The second one is intermediaries. So people that can introduce you to other people. Now, in theory, anybody can be an intermediary when you look at the network as this group of people that can help you. If you're looking at the network as just a way to make money, then intermediaries have obviously got to have access to the potential clients that you want to work with, right? Either way, they're useful people, and you can identify them as such. You can tag them as such. Now, some of your clients will also be intermediaries, because I've got one now, actually, a client who keeps introducing me to people. They're good people, and he's a good guy, and I love you. You know who you are. I love you. And I'm totally down with that. That's fine. But he's a client first. I see him as a client first. Look after him based on that premise. But actually, intermediaries can be others. They can just be people who introduce and connect us, really. Third group, you're going to love this. Kirsty keeps wants me to change the name of this, but I stick with it because I like it. Exposers.
I don't like it. It just.
I know, yeah.
It just.
I could change it to flashers if you want.
No, that's worse. That's you've gone the wrong
So
way.
exposers, these are really important people, massively important people for you if you want to grow your influence. These are people that control access to the kind of people that you want. So there could be someone that runs a podcast, or someone that runs a blog, or someone that, like this, a live show. So we could be exposers to people that want to sell to our audience, to you guys, right? Because we control access to this group of people. They're really important, and you should seek them out, because they can make very light work of getting your message out there and getting your face out there. And I'm a huge fan of that.
A huge fan of
I just
exposers.
think we've had a little comment in there. Someone's not taking this seriously, are they? I can see that, actually.
Ruth, you're saying what we're all thinking, Ruth.
Yeah, okay, yeah, whatever. Right,
let's move swiftly on to the next group, I think. Let's move on to the next group.
Okay, now it gets a bit real, really. Mentors. People, not an official mentor. I've got loads of mentors, and I'm very old. And you might think I know a lot. I suppose I do, but there's a whole bunch of stuff I don't know. That's for sure. Mentors are just people that can help you think, or teach you things, or expose you to new ideas or thoughts. And mentors don't have to be like an official position. I'm your mentor, you're my mentee. No, it's just someone you like to meet, and you get energy from them, and you get ideas and thoughts. They're really good to have in your network. And that is a part. If I take out my clients and my prospects, which, as I said, they're in a kind of a different category, really. This is the biggest reason I have a network, because I still learn and get so much from people, and I try and give as much or more than I take. I mean, I try and be generous with everything that I know. I don't hold on to things. But this mentors piece is really important. You should be looking out all the time for people that have done what you want to do, or have experienced what you'd like to experience, because they can help you. And I think it's really important to do that.
And they invigorate you when if you hit a slump or something, particularly if you're a solo. Like if you're a solopreneur, or if you don't know anybody else who is like you and owns a business, those people can, when you hit a slump and you just think, I'm exhausted, I can't be bothered,
Yeah,
they
it
make
is
you
just
feel better.
soaking up really things that you need, um, ideas, techniques, tools, ways of doing things. Just they've got things that you want, and they're useful. And likewise, you have things that other people would want.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those things. I think it was who was that actor that was Kevin Spacey. Sadly, actually, he was an exposer, wasn't he?
Michael, no, come on, we're gonna have to move on. Come on.
Ruth to say something about that any minute now. Don't flash it up if she does. Anyway, he said you've got to send the elevator down to the next generation, right? And what he's saying is you learn stuff. Yeah, you've got to teach. You've got to pass it on. Yeah. I think that's important. So
okay, Mike, let's move on to the last group, because I do want to.
Group, yeah, weird group, really. Powerful people,
like the Queen.
Powerful people, yeah. It's like, I know it's a weird thing, but powerful people can get things done, but you don't know necessarily when they're going to come in handy. So I like years ago, I met an ex-director of BT, right? Very urbane, very well connected. Fair enough. He was on a charity board with me, trustee of a charity, and we were there, this, that, and the other. And then we had some problems here with the internet sporadically going down. It's like a weird thing. No one knew why it was happening. And BT were useless, and the whole thing was a mess, really. We kept going through to a call center. God knows what it was, but I couldn't understand them. I had to repeat everything all over again, even though it should have been on a computer, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I was telling him this. He said, oh, okay, give me your mobile number. He said, right, I'll sort this for you. The same day, Stuart rang up. I don't think that was his name. Stuart rang up and said, right, I'm going to deal with this. Here's my number, my direct number. You can get me on this anytime you want. Tell me all what it is. Yeah, I think I know what it is. Let me talk to a few people. He says, we're going to send an engineer out. 2 days later, an engineer came out. Turned out that the cable had been stretched. Who knew? Right? That got sorted because I knew that director from BT. So I think that is perhaps that last powerful people kind of sounds a bit, well, what are you on about, Mike? But that's the one. That is true lucky dipping. You've got no idea how these people can help, but they usually can in one way or another. So
often they're interesting as well, which does help. Okay, so Mike, I think I understand who I'm supposed to have in my network, and some of them are quite obvious to find, about your prospects and your clients. They come from an obvious place. How am I supposed to, though, intentionally put these people in my network? How am I supposed to find them? Particularly when you're talking about powerful people or mentors, how am I supposed to find them?
Well, the first one is through introductions. And that's obvious. That's what the network is there for, really. Mm-hmm. Oh, I need you to meet so-and-so. I think you'd do well to be, this, that, the other. Introductions. Either because you've asked somebody and said, look, do you know anybody that does this? Oh, yeah, I do, as a matter of fact, right? So, or because someone has just volunteered, usually attached to an opportunity. I think you need to speak to so-and-so because they've got something for you. It could be a business opportunity or a chance to do some business with them or whatever, really. So I think introductions are a key currency. We call the term currency, are a currency that you can exchange. You introduce other people, they introduce you. And it really isn't necessarily about being in the black in the relationship bank account with everybody that you deal with. I mean, I like to try and be that way. In other words, I've given them more than they've given me. I like to be that way. I don't like to owe anybody anything. But it's not always possible. But if you view your network as a thing, as a noun, as long as you give more to it than you take from it, it all seems to work out okay in my experience.
Yeah, averages out.
Right. So I think that's important. But there's other things like you can, the big question, right? Okay, the big question is, where can you go that the people you want to meet go? So my old financial advisor, he's retired now, he joined a shooting club because the people he wanted to meet went to shooting clubs. The guy who I met from BT, it was a charity. Charity boards are great places to meet powerful, influential people because they're attracted to it. You go and volunteer to be a trustee on something, you're going to meet some real useful people. I didn't do it for that reason. I'd retired at the time. I wasn't working. I did it for something.
Dark time for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a dark year for me. But wow, I met some fantastic people. They're really powerful people in and around the city of Birmingham. People like Tim Watts from Pertemps and all that people are classed as friends now because I met them and that thing. So you got to think outside I'll go to that evening event and drink some Chardonnay and eat some cheese, or that breakfast meeting. Yeah, if that works for you, carry on. But you're not necessarily going to meet the powerful people, the interesting people, the mentors necessarily at those events because they don't tend to go. You can join paid clubs and groups.
I was going to say there are paid things, especially I know there's a lot in the space of like females in business. There's quite a few groups where they're kind of higher level, and again, they fall into the mentor space very often, I would say.
Yeah, there's one in Birmingham, which is like a female entrepreneurs club. I think Wendy's part of it, and I think that they're great, really. But the question is, where do the people that I want to meet, where do they go? That's the question.
And you go there.
And then start to think about it. And the easiest way to do that, by the way, just so that you know, is as soon as you meet somebody and you want more like them, is find out what they're interested in, where they go, what they do, what they adhere to. But those kind of things, I think, are easier to do than you might think, provided you're prepared to put a bit of effort in and realize, of course, you've only got so much time to give in. Another way you can meet people, of course, is online.
Not everybody is in the same vicinity as the people that they potentially want to meet.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I've got some really interesting people in my network who are in different parts of the world because I've met them online. Events, yes. Let's just talk about events for a second because, not just physical events where you rock up, which are important, I think.
Obviously.
But also events like electronic events like this. It can be the starting point of the relationship building process. Because you meet, they attend an event that you give, and then you've met them, and you are much more likely to be able to build a relationship with them because they've seen you speak or whatever. So there's a lot of routes there, I think, to meet people.
Okay, so that's one thing, but how do I build the relationship with them? Because particularly I'm thinking those powerful people that are kind of the step above, or the people who are going to have a lot of people who want to build relationships with them. How do you single yourself out and not seem as like a taker or somebody who's just kind of sponging off them, or do it in an uncomfortable way, I guess?
Okay, so obviously that the actual physical method of building relationships we're going to talk about in a minute, aren't we? I think we're going to look at some rules, 4 rules, networking rules, real networking rules that you should stick to, and we're going to expand upon that. But let's just for a second, let's just drop into the world of relationship building. So let's not think about networks. Think about your friends or your family or anyone really, right? Because relationships are human things. They're the way in which we relate to other people, and your network is full of them. It's full of relationships, right? So this is about understanding how relationship building works, and it applies to your family, to your team work, to your clients, to everybody. This is the deal, right? It comes down to 5 things. I don't know whether we've got these on a screen or not, but if not, I can remember them. It's okay. So if you want to build a relationship with someone, what you have to do is make them feel, I hope this is in the right order because I can't see it. So to make them feel special, I'm going to go through them all and then come back and dig in. Special, appreciated, understood, trusted, and happy. You think of, say, your best friend that you look forward to seeing at the weekend. They make you feel special, appreciated, understood, trusted, and happy, right? And look at it another way. You're at work and a supplier rings in, and they don't do any of those things. Your little heart sinks, and you only speak to them if you kind of have to. Otherwise, tell him I'm not in. Mike Ames is on the phone. No, tell him I'm not in.
That happens
on the phone. Put her through. Yeah, right. But it's true. The way in which you make people feel directly impacts the way in which they treat you and what they'll do for you.
So how are you supposed to do that? Give us some for instances here. Because
I'm going to break it down for you. But there's an old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know that counts, which isn't true, actually. It isn't true. It's not what you know. It's not even who you know. It's who you know that owes you a favor, likes you, and has got your cell number. That's what it is. Oh, that's what it is. That's the deal right there. Right? If you've given more than you've taken, and people like you, and they can get access to you, and you can get access to them, bingo. That's when the magic happens. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about building that group of people on purpose in a determined way. So let's go back to the words. So it's special. Let's think of the opposite of that. When someone rings you up and tries to sell you double glazing, Or when you get an email which has been generated by one of those frightful AI things,
don't, or the ones that are like, no, don't do that. Don't.
Right, and it makes it like it knows you.
Right.
The machine doesn't know you. It doesn't know what it's talking about, right? Right. So what we want is the opposite feeling from that. We want people to feel that we see them as an individual, and that's really important. That's why things like mass marketing and all that nonsense doesn't. No, not really. Or if you go to somebody,
we have got to move on a little bit because we're running a bit behind. So that's
we'll be fine. We'll be fine. But when they're talking to you, and in a room, say, and their eyes are darting over there, looking for someone more important. What is all that about? Where's that going to get you? Nowhere, right?
It's worse when they speak to people and then turn back to you and go, yeah, and they go, yeah, no, I'm coming to you in a second. I'm coming to you in a second.
Are you saying that I do that?
No, I'm not saying you do that. I think it's worse when people do that.
But
I'm okay when their eyes dart around the room. I'm not okay when they talk to other people.
Appreciated is the second one, and appreciated simply means that you appreciate them. So that can be a thank you, that can be a gift, that can be another form of currency, another way that you add value to them to show that actually I appreciate what you've done. And gifts for some people, if you read the 5 languages of love, gifts are one of them, and it's important that you understand.
Or if they're an introducer or an exposer, a simple thank you, like, it goes a long way.
Yeah, or a bit of lunch or something, or introduce them to somebody. Do something, for God's sake, to add to show that what they did was valuable to you. Right, understood is probably the most powerful. Have you ever talked to somebody, perhaps been bothered, been upset, or not been feeling good, and you're talking to someone, and suddenly with the things that they say, you know that they've got it, like totally got it. They totally understand how you feel. It's like that, sucks you in like that. You feel so attracted. I don't mean in a physical way, but you just drawn to them because they understand you, and you just, you totally get it. That is massively powerful, and that's about listening first and foremost. The ability to listen and compute, and then to be able to say things, not like, oh yeah, that happened to me as well, because that's like a big no-no, right? And we all say that, particularly men. I know that, but no, it's not that. It's so you must feel like this. Then you must feel very frustrated by that. You must feel very angry by that, or I don't know how you must have felt, but I think I would have felt this, that, and the other. It's about collecting or reflecting back things that make them realize that you totally understand them. Trusted, because if you trust someone, you're more likely to be trusted by them. And I think trust is such a powerful thing, isn't it? We give our trust to so few people. If you know that someone trusts you, that is a massive connector. And then the last thing, which makes me die, really, I've got to tell you this. So, and we got time, Kirst, we're okay.
Quickly.
We'll be fine, because I'm covering some of the stuff now that I was going to cover later. So I used to know a guy called Ronnie Bowker. He's dead now, unfortunately, God rest his soul. And he was the senior partner at Ernst & Young in Birmingham. So he ran the Birmingham office. Really nice guy, very powerful man. I was having dinner with him one night, and we're talking about partners. I said, well, what? How do you know when someone's going to be a partner? What's the criteria at Ernst & Young? And he said, well, there's got to be this, technical ability, work rate, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, they've got to be an interesting dinner guest. And I said, well, sorry, what was that? He said, yeah, because people don't like to spend time with people who aren't particularly interesting or funny or can tell a good story. All right, so we look for people who are interesting dinner guests, and that's always stuck with me, really. And I don't know, I don't suspect for a second that was an official Ernst & Young
in the bylaws
policy. No, I don't think. I think that was Ronnie, really, but that's typical Ronnie. But the point is, and this is really important, is those 5 things are about building relationships with anybody, your family, your friends, your co-workers, whatever. Direct that towards your network and everything changes. That's where the power lies.
Okay, all right. So in a second, as I said, we're going to look at rules. Mike's alluded to a couple of them, but we're going to look at some rules that we have for this process to make it simpler. Now, again, a lot of people watching this might know these rules, but your team might not. And if you want them to start doing this and have a powerful network, it's going to be helpful to them to make it more of a process. But before then, Mike, I believe we have a message from our sponsors.
That's us, isn't it?
It is us, yeah.
Okay. Before we look at that, let me just say this, right? What I'm about to show you now is for certain types of people who are watching this. And I know because every time we run it, we get 1 or 2 people inquiring for it. So I know it relates, which is why we do it. Okay, let's bring that up then, Kirst. Okay, so we run Profit and Lifestyle Growth Summits. It's a full day session where you work on your business, not in it. Okay, and these are the topics that we cover. We go deep into them. Strategic business development is about winning the 20% of clients that generate 80% of your revenue. How do we win them on purpose? We tell you. Apex Client Care means that we bubble to the top with more of the hiring managers, particularly in those top 20% that we want, so that we get the edge against the competition, even if there's a preferred supplier list in place. Zero cost marketing is, as its name suggests, marketing that supports sales and client care, but it doesn't cost any money. It is the best kind of marketing, if you ask me. Layered fulfillment simply means we don't do 360s for all sorts of reasons. If you want to do 360s in your revenue factory, go right ahead, it's fine. But if you want an alternative, that's it. And lastly, we build a business based on the people that we employ. So if you can be a sticky employer to attract, motivate, and keep the right people for your business, you will do well. Now, we cover all of those in a very interactive session. You might think that's big dough. You would be wrong. There you go. For the day, including breakfast, lunch, snacks, notes, and yours truly. Ta-da! There you go. It's more expensive in London because London is more expensive.
Yeah.
If you'd just like to know more, so we don't think that you're just going, we're not going to sell to you and do all that unpleasant stuff. You go into a funnel, just bombard you with emails. No, no, no. If you just want to know more, we've got a website with it all on. All you need to do is email summit, mike@flair.co.uk, and I will send you that link. And I would say this before we move off this page. If you feel a little confused or overwhelmed or overworked, or you're not making enough money, or you feel that business depends upon you too much, you're not spending time with your loved ones in the way that you expected, you're disappointed the way in which things have turned out, or you're just not clear as to what to do next, come on the summit. It will change everything.
Yes, we get some very good feedback from that. Okay, Mike, now I've promised these rules, I've alluded to them. So should we get cracking with the first one? So the first rule of unlocking the power of real networking is to choose the right people. Now, we've kind of alluded to this a little bit already.
Because, I have. Because I've only got so much time and effort, and there's only so many things you can give. So you really need to choose the right people. I've given you the categories that you should invest in. Obviously, if you take out prospects and clients, which you can take that out, that becomes part of something else, your client estate or your pipelines, then you can treat them differently. You're choosing them because you think they're going to be great clients, right? So that's fine. The other categories, though, are there for a reason. I think introducers or intermediaries and exposers are easy. You either run a podcast or you don't. I mean, it's not difficult, really. Yeah. I think mentors and important people are the ones where you would put most effort in to choose the right people, really. And it is difficult to put people into a network and think, yeah, you'll be useful one day. You've also got to be thinking, how can I be of use to you? And I'll tell you one thing. Well, no, I'll come to it in a second, actually. Yeah. It's the next rule, so I'll come to it in a second. But choosing the right people, building your business, building your network on purpose is where
I have a question with this, Mike. Especially for mentors and important people, do you think there has to be a natural camaraderie? Do you think that how well you get on with someone, because you might meet the most important person in the world, but if you think that they are a bad word or they think the same about you, that's never going to go anywhere, is it?
No, they've got to like you, really. I mean, there are levels of relationships. Like the BT director, I just got on with him. I wasn't a mate. We never went drinking or had lunch together. We just met in an environment which brought us together. But we got on. It wasn't weird. I didn't think, oh, he's a tosser, and vice versa. So I think there has to be a certain level of rapport. But I think it's safe to say as well, the more rapport that you have with someone, the more likely you are to be able to help each other. Yeah.
Fantastic. Right. So now rule 2 is give more value than you take. Now, Mike, I know you, and I'm assuming you're not talking about bribes or backhanders or anything going on here.
That's exactly what I mean.
Oh, right. Okay, good.
Yeah. No, I don't mean that. No, I've never paid a bribe in my entire life, unless you count getting lashed up in the evening and me picking the tab up, which I suppose could be argued as a bribe. But no, I've never paid a bribe, never paid cash or anything. I don't believe in it really. But if you're not going to be one of life's takers, and there are lots of those around, aren't there? People that want to take from you but don't want to give anything back. By the way, you need to identify them real quick, really. No good investing in those boys, no, right? So if you found someone that you value, you've got to try and give what you can. And there are things called currencies which you can use to do that. It's kind of smacks of money, doesn't it? But it isn't. So it could be in a practical sense, it could be we use this show as a currency. We add value through it, and I use it when I'm talking to people. If I do go to events or the things that we run, well, look, you're interested in networking? Oh, we've got a webinar on that. Do you want me to? It's on the YouTube channel. Do you want me to send you a link over? I'm just adding value. I've listened to what they've said, and I've tried to add value with it. Or introductions are another great way to add value.
Your network can be a value to other people.
Yeah, your network is a currency. Yeah, the stronger your network gets. I tell you, we could play this little game if we got more time. If somebody was to put a comment in there to say, do you know one of these? Or I've got this problem. The chances are I would know somebody or know somebody who knows somebody that could help you, right? Mm-hmm. Because I've got a big network, and I'm very old. So, but giving more than you take is important because it's the way that you get into the black in the relationship bank account. You're not going to be in the red with everybody where you owe more than you've given, because that's not healthy. And if that continues, eventually that relationship will diminish.
Yeah, because they all think, I'm not having that. And everybody knows, you know when you've had a relationship with a taker that you kind of get a bad taste in your mouth after you've interacted.
And the easiest way to figure that out, to tell you just ask for something small. Just ask for something. And if the excuses start tippling out, it's okay, well, you're marked for deletion then, as we used to say back in the day. So I don't think that that's going to work. One other thing about that, to bring that back up a second if I can, let me just zero on one word that matters in there, and it's that middle word, value. Just because you give something doesn't necessarily mean that it's valuable. I had a contact years ago now, and it constantly was introducing me to people that was zero use to me.
Yeah.
And it's like another email's come in, no, and you want to be kind because he's such a nice bloke, and you sort of have a telephone call, which is not a waste of time. You get the feeling that the other person's feeling the same thing as well. You have to know what's going to be of value to people. You have to know what's valuable. And let me tell you what that really means. It can be a practical use to them, help them solve a problem, realize an opportunity. So there's a practical help with it. It can be interesting. That's enough sometimes, just interesting. It can be useful, right? And also it can be thought-provoking. Now, there's one other currency that you can bring, and I think this is for people who are perhaps starting out in that journey. You can bring yourself. If you're funny or can tell a story or just interested,
a good dinner guest,
a good listener, like Mrs. Ames is a very good listener. We go out for dinners, don't do it so much now, but when I used to run a big business, you go out for dinners and people say, your wife is brilliant. She's so interested. I say to her, I didn't say anything. I just asked questions all night. She's very good at it, loves it. So being interested, you are the currency. So if you've got nothing else, if you've got no research papers that your business has written, if you don't run events, if you don't run social events that you can invite people to, still got yourself. Right, and you can still take people for a bit of lunch, a bit of breakfast, which is more and more popular these days, or maybe a coffee and a cake or something. So you can add value. You just need to understand what it is that people find of use, and if you tick that box for them, it draws you in.
Okay, all right. So that's rule number 2. That makes sense to me. Now, rule number 3 is interact on purpose. Can you just clarify what you mean by that?
So an interaction is just where you speak to someone or meet them or exchange emails or texts. Any interaction is where you connect or interact. I suppose that's where they come from. Interact with someone, right? And basically what that does is puts another layer on the relationship bridge, because the relationship bridge isn't stable. It starts to rot from the bottom. So you have to keep putting in layers onto it. But some of the layers are stronger than others. And a relationship gets to a certain stage, to continue the analogy, the bridge gets to a certain stage where it stops rotting. Those are those friends that you haven't seen for 5 years, but if you met them again, will be like old days all over again. Your relationship gets past a sort of a tipping point, and then after that, it's pretty much safe.
It's solid as
But
a rock.
before that, you've got to keep putting layers on the bridge, and these interactions are those layers. So you have to do that on purpose. And there's a thing called a 3-tier cultivation regime. And it's basically tier 1 are scheduled calls that you put in there. Tier 2 are ad hoc interactions that you might do.
Social media,
or text, or whatever. And then underneath that is something more regular, which would be perhaps a newsletter or something, part of a club that you're in. What we're interested in here for the network is number 2, ad hoc interactions. That's what we're interested in. I'll tell you this story, right? Pete put in, he was doing some work on this, and he was talking about his brother, Thomas. And we went to the expo in London, not this time, but the last time. Thomas, who sells peanuts for a living, he was in the opposite hall, which was a food exhibition. So there we were in the expo, literally opposite each other. We met him. He was having coffee with someone when we met him. When we left at about 2:30, he was in the same place, but he was drinking beer now. He hadn't even been into the hall. All he'd done was set up a load of meetings, one after the other, for coffee, lunch. I don't think he had anything to eat, did he?
He hadn't had anything to eat. I had to give him my emergency sandwiches.
It's Griffey. That is a interaction on purpose, set up to either grow your network, to bring new people into it, or to strengthen that through an interaction where you make people feel special, appreciated, understood, trusted, and happy. That's what I mean by interact on purpose.
I think as well, like another one that I do is I have various people in my network all over the world. I go to yoga retreats, and it's great to meet people all over the world. And anytime I'm within a local distance of that person, if I'm in the same country, if I'm vaguely near, I'll always try and arrange a meeting with them. That's helpful, especially if you have a broader network that's online a lot. If you're there.
I met one of, this isn't quite in the network, but one of Pete's crowd was living in Australia when we were there, and we just met for coffee. So I was in Sydney, and why wouldn't I? So we met up for coffee. But I think there is this, if you don't interact before your relationship is set, when it's set, you're fine. But before it's set, it will deteriorate. And then all that good work has gone to nothing. So you've got to interact on purpose to keep that relationship strong.
Okay, all right, so that makes sense. So finally, the final rule that we've got to look at is don't be afraid to ask. Now, I think this, out of everything that we've said today, is the one that a lot of people are going to have the biggest problem with, because asking can feel, I don't know, it can feel awkward, and you kind of like, oh, I feel like I've taken a lot though, especially if you're offered things.
Two things about this, right? We used to do a lot of work with lawyers and teaching them to build networks. We had a whole course, in fact, we still have it, I think, don't we, somewhere?
We do.
A whole course called Network 101 to teach them how to build and monetize networks, right? The whole thing. And this was the thing they had the biggest problem with. It's like they felt a bit awkward or a bit embarrassed. Well, two things. First of all, if you've given more than you've taken, it's not a problem. You're just leveling up the playing ground a little bit. That's okay. That's all right. Secondly, who likes to feel that they're in somebody's debt? I don't. I certainly don't. So if someone has done some favors for me and helped me, I want to reciprocate. I want to level it up a little bit. And most people feel like that, except for the takers, obviously.
Which is a good thing to find out if they are or not one.
So we really want to even up and help if we can. The other thing is, there's a lot of research around this. You can use that as a form of relationship building to ask for help. As long as it doesn't cost too much early in the relationship, I think you know a lot about this thing. Would you mind helping me just to share with me what you know, or help me with this particular issue or problem? People react very well to that because they really want to help and give. Because if it's their knowledge, it's also a kind of way of saying, well, I recognize that you're an expert in this, or you know a lot about it, which is good for the ego. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So don't be afraid to ask. It's about positioning in your mind. If you've given more than you've taken, it's going to help them because they get an opportunity to level up the playing field. It's not fair not to ask, if you ask me. So.
Do you think you start asking with something small. So you ask for a small thing like their opinion on something, or them to have a look at a piece of collateral or
I think
something.
when
Or
you
do you
ask
think you
when
could
you
just
need,
run
really.
in?
I think you ask when you need, and like, so if I meet an exposer and I want to go on that person's show, then
Mm-hmm.
if they've got anything to say, they can come on our show. We don't have people on the show that don't add value, but yeah, come on our show, that'd be cool. But some people don't do that. They're just hosts. Especially in America, there are people that don't go on anyone's show. They just host. I'm going on one of these shows in May, actually, in Washington. And for them, I've just got to go on and do a great job for him.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And of course, I will promote the show and get it out to people because he's a good host as well. So, but I'm not afraid to ask because I'm going to do a great show for him, and I'm going to propel his show into my network as well. So I don't think it's a major problem at all.
And what about fear of rejection? Do you think if people to get over it, they people
Well,
who
get
have
over yourself, yeah. Deal with it. Get over yourself. Grow up at your age. Is that a
anything
bit
more helpful?
boomerish? Is that a bit boomerish coming out there?
Anything more helpful than that? Anything?
Yeah, I think. Well, first up, like in sales, it's a worst case scenario. They're not rejecting you at all. They don't know who you are. No, it's
That's
not. They're rejecting what you stand for, or your position, if you will. They're not. They're not you. They don't. That's not you at all, really. And I think as well, if you act with confidence and give a reason for what you want, if they say no, they are entitled to say no. It's fine. That's fine. You say no. That's okay. Thank you anyway. I appreciate you thinking about it, but no, honestly though, it's just a thing. I wouldn't worry about it, to be honest.
Okay. All right.
Not as
Okay.
helpful as it could be.
So, right, Mike, we have done our full rules, and in a second, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to ask about your top tip. But before then, I want to talk about the next show, and we have an announcement that is sort of combined with that. So the next show.
Before that, I've got to just put this up like from Andy. Yeah, Andy, £20 in the post, mate.
Yeah, for those on the podcast, it was you really live what you preach there. Oh, somebody's here. Neo's put, if anyone has a problem with rejection, read the 4 Agreements, which I'm assuming is a book, and I'll definitely look into that because
I'll be reading that directly after this show on Blinkist.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, so that's very helpful. Thank you, Neo. The 4 Agreements. Okay, Mike. So let's talk about the next show, which is Jake Holt.
Yes, we're going to talk about being a sticky employer because there's no way that you can build a successful business that doesn't need you all the time. In other words, you're not doing all the work yourself without people because that's the nature of it. You hire people, they do the work instead of you. And so if you can't attract and keep not necessarily top billers, because I don't believe in top billers as a concept, but if you can attract the right people for your business and keep them and motivate them and maximize their productivity, you will be successful. So we're going to talk about sticky employers, and Jake's coming on to talk about one specific thing. He's going to contribute in other areas, but one thing that he does that I really like, and he also offers this, I think, to his clients as well. So watch out for that. Very cool. Oh yeah.
I'm a big fan of that. But we do have an announcement around the next show. Now, we have run our shows on a Thursday since we began them way back in COVID times. But, Mike, we are now moving the show to a Tuesday, same time, just on a Tuesday.
We are, yes, because I don't work Fridays, Melanie doesn't work Fridays, and we don't have enough time to do everything we need to do after the show to get it out to people in the time that we have. So we're moving it to Tuesdays. Still should be okay. I hope it doesn't clash with our Wednesday webinars. So it should be okay. But there will be reminders, obviously, and when it comes out, you'll see that it's on that date. So yeah.
Yeah, but make spaces in your diary for a Tuesday instead of a Thursday. Still begins with a T. It's no problem. Okay, Mike, it's come to the end of the show. So I want to know your top tips. So you've obviously given a lot. We've had the full rules, which is choose the right people, give more value than you take, interact on purpose, and don't be afraid to ask for things from your network because really that's what it's for. People expect. So what is your top tip out of everything we've given today?
I'll do that. And before I do that, as I'm giving you the top tip, I would be enormously grateful. Giving back, you see, I'm not afraid to ask. if you could just pop in the comments what resonated the most with you. I don't want a big list of things. I'm not looking for ego stroking. These kind of shows, we never get a lot of interaction when we do these things because of the nature of what it is. But I really would like to know what's resonated with you that we've said today that's really connected. That would be very useful. And I can go and look at the comments later and pick those up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the thing that I think you should do first, and Mike's top tip is really to learn what the people in your network find value. Because if you don't do that, there's a very good chance you're going to be giving stuff that isn't valuable, that it's not going to do any harm, but it isn't going to do any good either. And if you do it too much, it can be a little bit annoying, really. So really understand what people find of value. What are they interested in? What problems have they got? What opportunities are they looking for? How do they want to better themselves? Who do they want to meet? These are the kind of questions you need to be asking and finding out, because then you can add real value and then you can build your network.
Fantastic. I think that is one that's valuable in all areas of life. So I like that. And we've already had one comment about the thing that's resonated most, which is from Neo, which is ask, which I very much enjoy. Mike will be very pleased with that.
Yeah. I just did. And so there you go.
Fair enough. And as Mike said, if you're watching a recording of this even, still pop it in the comments, whether it's on YouTube or LinkedIn, because it's always nice to hear. But Mike, we've come to that time of the show where it is time to close. So I do want to thank everybody for watching. I know who have made comments, even if they are mocking Mike, Ruth. So thank you very much. Ruth likes the top tip, actually, Mike. So that works out well. Gentle mockery from earlier is replaced with kind words. And I want to say thank you to Mike for sharing all of your value with us today. So thank you very much, Michael.
Absolute pleasure. And thank you for hosting us as you do so well every single session.
And we'll see you in 2 weeks on a Tuesday.
We won't. We'll see you a week on Tuesday.